Hello everyone, welcome to Scorcher Toys at IndieMoon.com's review of Toynami's Robotech action figures. This review is covering 5 action figures: Rick Hunter, Roy Fokker, Max Sterling, Miria Sterling, and Minmay in Chinese dress. These toys made their debut at San Diego Comic-Con in July 2018, where a special collector set was available featuring all 5 releases in an exclusive sleeve for $75. The sleeve wasn't the only thing differentiating this release from the regular retail versions, as each blister card features gold foil Robotech text. The regular releases became available in September 2018 for $13.99 each, with no collector sleeve and yellow Robotech print. All figures come with a figure base. The pilot figures come with helmets and hair for under the helmets. If you are trying to hunt down the retail releases, then look no further than the link in the comments below. Click the link, go to Big Bad Toy Store, find 100 other things you want, and search for Robotech to grab these items too. All toys come with a figure base, which is just a plastic circle and one peg that goes into the foot. It doesn't really matter which toy you have, it functionally works the same. Minmay pretty much needs the figure base. Other figures can stand on their own with just a little bit of effort. Minmay seems almost impossible to get her to stand on her own. And part of that is because Minmay is a different figure. She's obviously got this long dress on. The dress does bend, it's a little bit flexible. You can take her leg out and bring it outside, and then you have that knee joint there that's available to you. But otherwise, very small feet. She has a waist joint. Obviously, this leg isn't going to get much mobility out of there, even with this being flexible. It's pretty trapped. So you have the waist, then you move up and you have the arms, which spin around and come in and out. And then the hands are peg-in hands, which makes it a little strange. You didn't get optional hands, or even a microphone accessory would have been pretty nice with Minmay. Moving up, she's got a ball jointed head. It's better left and right than it is up and down, but you do get some mobility out of it. And her hair is nice and rubbery, so it's going to get out of the way for you. Now, if you're wondering how this compares to the original Minmay figure, and remember, Matchbox actually canceled their Minmay. It wasn't until Harmony Gold came around that we got a Minmay figure. Let's see if I can get that. So here is the Harmony Gold Minmay figure. And yeah, it's not the best likeness. So obviously a fairly dramatic improvement over the old Harmony Gold toy. That's a very low bar. Now it is worth pointing out that the old Harmony Gold toy owns the Toynami from an articulation standpoint. We've got the ability to rock back and forth, left and right, at the waist, twist at the waist, the legs, forward and back, knee, just as much, if not more range of motion. And she has a twist in the arm and an elbow. And you may have noticed this Minmay can only walk like she eats brains. So a little bit of an issue there. So she looks all right. She looks pretty good, actually. Now, you might be looking at this and being like, what are you talking about? She doesn't look good. She looks terrible. Remember, these are pretty small figures. So while it might look huge on your screen right now, and you might be able to nitpick the death out of her face and whatever, just thinking she doesn't look exactly like she did on the show, she is very small. She's 10.5 centimeters tall. So in my hand, she looks fine. It's not that big a deal. What is a little stranger, though, is that she is 10.5 centimeters tall, and so is Rick. So you would think there should be a little height disparity there, and we've come far enough in toy making where the action figures might better resemble their heights in the show. That is definitely not a thing here. You may have noticed that these toys are constantly sporting the Kung Fu grip, and the reason for that is so that they can hold their included helmets. To put the helmet on the figure, you're going to find the little under helmet hair accessory as well and then you just have to lift up to pull the hair off. Now, Miria does have the most problematic hair because it kind of comes down and sweeps in front and back, and so as you turn her head, sometimes it lifts up a little bit on you. But just pull it off now. Grab that little accessory hair. You can see there's a peg. You're just going to slot that on. Now, this is a little bit of a durability concern. It's kind of thin and rubbery, and you wonder if it's not going to like tear over time. But we'll just fish that on there, and I'll put her back on her base here so she'll stand for me. There we go. And then grab the helmet. Now it does kind of, it's a little bit rubbery, so it kind of squeezes over her ears to peg into place. And there you go. And now with the helmet on, you've eliminated the hair, so you'll actually find a little bit better head mobility at this point. All of the pilot figures come with helmets. Here's what they all look like wearing said helmet. All right, we've talked about Min-Mei's articulation, but let's look at the pilot figure articulation now as well. One thing to point off before we get too far is these action bases are just a vertical peg sticking up from a round piece of plastic. So that means you are going to have a hard time doing anything other than keeping the leg vertical when using that, which can get pretty awkward. And that's because there are no joints between that peg and the hip, really, that allow you to get any sort of angle going on. So you have your knee, and your knee gets you a little less than 90 degrees, but you don't have any sort of pivoting other than up here at the hip, which is, you know, fairly decent, but nothing splendid. So it does really well forward and back. Out, it does okay. Let's see, we'll have to get rid of that at this point. And then rocking in and out, it does all right. Now, another thing I didn't like about the pilot figures, they didn't paint the inside of the peg, so that looks a little bit funky. Now, obviously, as you handle the figures, other paint areas aren't going to match up perfectly, but that seemed like a low-hanging fruit that they could have knocked out. Now, you do have a waist, obviously. Again, no pivot at that waist, though. So you're really relying on the hips for any sort of pivoting you want to do. And then the hands, again, being peg-ins, they can spin. No elbows, no spin near the elbow. And then the shoulders, just like we saw in Min-Mei. And the head, and the more hair you have, the more the head is inhibited, right? So Roy has a bunch of hair coming down the back. He can look left and right easy enough, but he can't really look up at all. So that is a bit of a bummer. Now here is a Micro Man figure from about 10 years ago. And the articulation on this figure is just amazing in comparison, right? So it can bring its knee all the way up. It can bring its elbow all the way up. Obviously, it's got twists in the legs and the arms and a ball-jointed head that actually works and pops off, but gets you all sorts of range of motion. So a little crazy how great Takara was 10 years ago at making action figures and how seemingly poor Toynami is. Now, Toynami does do other action figures and does them better than this. So that's even more questionable what's going on there. So these figures are a little bit bigger than the original Harmony Gold or Matchbox releases. They're about 1 centimeter bigger. So you might be wondering, is this going to work with my old Matchbox toys? And the answer to that is, it depends. So here is Rick riding the Armored Cyclone. Now the Armored Cyclone is obviously an easy one to do. Rick can't really look up, so he's not selling it quite. But there's no contraption above him. There's nothing limiting the space. So this is an easy old Robotech toy that you could pull out and use your new action figures with. But something like the VF1 Veritech, where there's a cockpit that the figure has to fit in, it's going to be a much less comfortable fit. Here you can see me actually doing it. You can get him in there, but he's basically lying down so his head won't smash through the glass. So that doesn't quite sell it as well. So a lot of manufacturers have made things in the 1/18 scale. So you might have some other toy that you're thinking about pairing these action figures up with, doing a little cross-universe stuff that might be fun. You can pull it off with one caveat, since these are roughly the size of most 1/18 scale modern toys. And that is, it depends on how much articulation is needed. So I obviously was able to get Max sitting here in my DMZ01, and he has very limited articulation. Doesn't really look like he's doing the best job holding the handles, but I was able to get in there, right? There might be other toys where the lack of articulation is gonna stymie your effort to get one of these figures inside that cockpit. So could work based on size, probably won't work based on articulation. So do I recommend these toys? Yeah, well, not really, and here's my thought on that. If you want a figure to dress up your display cabinets, for Roy and Rick in particular, you would be much better off just going out and getting the CM's character figures that were available. They didn't have any articulation at all, but they did do a better job capturing the essence of the characters. Max, Miria, and Min-Mei, there's not a lot of great options out there, particularly for Max and Miria. So you might use these as a substitute, but the articulation is extremely limited. So if you're looking for a toy that you're actually going to handle and have fun with, that is not these. Now, one fun fact, the old Matchbox toys, like this one, came with guns. Because you remember all those times Max and Miria were chasing people with their Uzis. So you could actually take the old Uzi from a Matchbox toy and put it in these characters' hands really well. So that's cool. Maybe you can play with these toys after all. Check out anymoon.com for my full article, and as always, thanks for watching.